Welcome to the inaugural episode of the Papercut podcast. I'm David Genge.
And I'm Summer Rodriguez.
And this episode we have stories on the topic of bullying.
These stories come from Orchid Academy High School students and staff and were recorded in December of 2015 by Mr. Gelati's creative writing class and our 6 brave contributors.
First, we have an anonymous student who wishes to share an experience from junior high. Anonymous, you're up.
So it all started in 7th grade, and I liked this girl who was a 6th grader, and I went to a Catholic school, so it was kind of weird because I liked the same sex. So I've told a few of my close friends that I was bi, and in that time they all accepted me because they were my closest friends. So when I told selected people who I liked, they're like, "Oh, that would be so cute," a general reaction. So I decided later on that I would tell her that I was bi, the girl that I liked. And then I changed my mind and said, what could hurt? I could just tell her that I like her. So I started thinking about it, and I was like, oh, that'd be kind of a bad thing. So 2 of my friends knew that I previously planned to tell her that I liked her, so they were supporting me in that, but I didn't tell them that I was going to just tell her that I was coming out. So them following us as I was going to tell her, I tried to drop hints, and I couldn't just tell her straight up. So they came up to her and started telling her, oh, this person likes you, they like you, and it was a very bad reaction from her. So it was just kind of a devastating moment in my 13-year-old brain, and it was really bad. I had to stay at the office the whole day. And then the next day, going to school, the whole school, being a really small Catholic school, everybody found out. A lot of people in my grade were like, oh, that's weird, and calling me different names, like a faggot and things like that. And people in her grade were just kind of like, that's not normal. And especially the principal came and talked to me and was like, you're not even supposed to have boyfriends at this age. Why would you think of and she wouldn't even say it. It was something.
The principal said this to you?
Yeah.
Jesus.
The whole school knew. And the person that I liked, Mom, worked at the school, and she just kind of gave me dirty looks whenever she'd see me. It was just kind of something that does hurt you, especially being so young. And that's something that caused me to think of different things to do, and it started putting me in a bad time, and I started doing things that were self-inflicting pain on myself, and it just wasn't a good time. And thinking back on it, it made me afraid to tell people who I was when I was in high school. And going into a bigger school and new people, it helped me to actually understand that not everybody is like that, and more people don't care about your sexuality or who you identify as. Everybody just accepts you. And I think that coming out of that hellhole was something that really brought me to a better place.
Well, it's good knowing that you feel accepted here. And it's always really difficult for everyone to go through junior high, and especially with those accusations and making you feel that way. My personal junior high was awful, but it's never that bad. All right, we'll have another story coming up. See you in a second. Welcome back to Papercut Podcast. If you're just tuning in with us, this month's theme is bullying, and we've asked students to share their stories on being bullied, witnessing bullying, or being a bully themselves. Now we have Chad Gaspar with us today. Chad?
Yeah, so I was diagnosed with autism, ADHD, and dyslexia at a young age. So I got picked on a lot because I needed special help. A lot of people looked at me funny because I just couldn't, and the people talk about me behind my back, they're like, oh, he can't do anything by himself, he needs all this help, and I'm like, I can, and it just kind of overwhelmed me because I couldn't think straight. when other people were doing like math, I couldn't like get the calculations right. It just, so they would laugh at me. It was just like, what right do they have to
Take your time.
to judge me? It's just like, and it got worse when I got to junior high school because you have to be in a class if you have, because I had an IEP, and it's just like they are like, oh, that's the retarded class, and I'm like, so like, no, it's not. It's just time to do extra homework. I'm like, they're like, no, you need help, and it's just like, why do you keep doing this? And then I got trash canned. Everything just went downhill. I got beat up. And then came this girl who everybody kind of made fun of too, but I didn't want to associate with her because once I found out that she was getting picked on too, because I was afraid, oh, they'll pick on me more. When really why should I care what they think? It was stupid of me. And so I kind of distanced myself from her after I found out she was not popular or not well liked, and I just can't believe I did that. Why? It's like, why did I care about what they think? It's just like, what? I don't know what brought me to it. And I really only had one friend, and I know him since kindergarten. That's why, because like I didn't need as much help then, and he was also in special ed. But like people didn't pick on him as much because he was, I don't know, it just luck of the draw. And so, but he would stand up for me. He would have my back if someone was talking about me. If someone was picking on me, trash canning me, he would fight. It was just, he was a good friend. And then I kind of blew that with being less sensitive to him when he was having trouble. And yeah, that's just my story.
Thank you so much, Chad. We'll be right back with another story. This is the Papercut podcast, and if you've just tuned in, our month's theme is on bullying. We've asked our fellow students to share their stories. But we students tend to forget our teachers are people too, with stories of their own. Today we have Graham Culbertson, who has a story from his childhood. When you're ready.
Okay. So my story comes from when I was in 5th or 6th grade, I can't remember, because we had a combination class because my school was really small. Anyway, one of the things that we got really into doing at one point was, the fall hit and there were leaves everywhere, and somebody had decided to just rake up the leaves, and we had a really good day one day just kind of jumping into the leaf pile and kind of throwing it around. But a few people in my class got really dedicated to it. So it turned into not just one day with the leaf pile, but kind of a week or two with the leaf pile. And there would be people that were assigned jobs to kind of maintain it, to rake it up after somebody had been in it, to put cones around it, to watch it, to make sure that nobody that didn't help make the leaf pile went into it. It was very, very intricate. And I remember one of the big controversies about it was we were always really good during the day with watching it ourselves and kind of making sure nobody got into the leaf pile that didn't work on the leaf pile. But every day after school, the 7th and 8th graders, I remember, would get out. It seemed like they got out just a little bit before us, and they would race across the field and just jump into it and throw it everywhere and then just kind of run off. And I don't think I remember being personally really bothered by it, but I remember this girl that was in my class it really upset her. She'd kind of taken charge of the leaf pile. It was her job to assign duties and all of those things. And I remember she just felt like something had to be done about it. This was her leaf pile, this was our leaf pile, and these kids weren't treating it with respect. And I think, she felt like they were kind of like picking on her or bullying her or whatever. And I remember her going to our teacher and going to the principal. I mean, I think if I remember correctly, it got to that level, and saying, you need to do something about this. Like, they're destroying our leaf pile, and they're just getting away with it. And I remember everybody kind of, from my memory as like a young kid, just didn't really take her very seriously. They were kind of like, listen, we have bigger fish to fry. These are just leaves, and you don't own the leaves, and people can do whatever they want with them. So I remember she was just really frustrated, and when you see people that are really frustrated in their minds, the gears kind of start whirring, and they're trying to think of how they're going to solve this problem. And I don't think she really talked to anybody about it, if I remember correctly, because I remember what happened ended up kind of surprising me. I remember watching, once again the bell had rung and the 7th and 8th graders were running out there, and we had kind of just come out, almost like we were going to stop it from happening. And this kid just jumped. I can still see him jumping into the air. And he landed in the leaf pile, but he didn't sink into it. And there was just this, kind of like a loud smack that doesn't really happen with a regular leaf pile. And he just screamed in pain. And I remember being like, what is going on? And I kind of come to find out there had been a milk crate that had been put underneath the leaf pile. It had kind of covered it up. And I looked over at this girl that ran the leaf pile, and she just had just the most devilishly happy face. She was just like, oh, this is so, she had gotten her revenge. And she was so delighted to, I think, maybe even more empowered to take this fight against her bully into her own hands. It was just great. I can still kind of see him jumping into it in my mind and see her face. I don't think I'll ever forget her face afterwards. She was just so delighted to have some control over her leaf pile. And of course, the leaf pile lasted like a day or two after that because the leaves got all soggy and it was kind of all over. But, yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Culbertson, for coming here and sharing your story today. So if you are being bullied, remember, go talk to people first. This is the Papercut podcast, nestled here in the halls of OAHS. This month's theme is on bullying, and we've asked our fellow students to share their stories on being bullied, witnessing bullying, or being a bully themselves. Our fourth story today is from an anonymous student who wishes to share his story. Anonymous?
Well, bullying started for me basically with my family and my cousins. I was overweight when I was a kid, and my cousins made fun of me for that. And they would do all kinds of stupid stuff to me just to make fun of me. They would just make me feel really crappy about myself. And then when I got to high school freshman year, I was still overweight. And other people started making fun of me too. And that same cousin who was bullying me when I was a kid happened to go to that school where I was. And it just got worse. He got his friends involved. He got others involved. I couldn't walk the hallways without being bothered. I constantly got in fights with them. And I remember one time I was riding my bike home, and one of the bullies was also riding his bike, and he rammed his front tire in my back tire, and I flipped. And I ended up breaking my leg freshman year, and it still bothers me to this day. I can't go on Rigetti's campus without freaking out, without thinking they're behind me, they're gonna beat me up. So every football game or every other sports event at Rigetti I can't go to, because if people walk behind me, I think it's them, and I don't want to turn around, and I end up just running away. And it still continues to this day. Sometimes I can't go certain places by myself. have to take a friend or my older brother with me. And I don't even talk to the cousin that bullied me anymore, which is kind of ironic since he lives really close to me. And I can't go to some family events because of the cousins that are there. And that's my story.
Thank you so much, Anonymous. Here at Papercut, we try to make people feel that they're accepted. And Anonymous, thank you so much for sharing your story today. We will be right back with another story. Welcome back to the Papercut podcast. This month's theme is bullying, and we've asked our fellow students to share their stories. We have our fifth brave speaker today. Anonymous, you're up.
So, Anonymous, you were telling us before about your bullying and the effects that resulted from your bullying. Can you tell us a little bit about the bullying that caused you pain?
Well, I started to get bullied when I was in 5th grade, and I don't know, it just made me feel really insecure about myself. I just didn't feel like myself, and I didn't want to go to school, and it was just really crippling. And
what were the effects of some of the bullying?
one of the effects that I had, well, two of the effects I had were anxiety and depression. So the anxiety was just, I was always scared. I was always having anxiety attacks. I couldn't eat. I really couldn't do anything. I couldn't leave the house. Depression, I was just really upset. I couldn't get out of bed. I didn't want to do anything.
Were there any physical effects of your anxiety and your depression?
I felt nauseous. I would have headaches. My body would hurt.
And I know that this is a stigma that comes with mental illness, that when you have anxiety or depression, there isn't any physical factor. It's just in your head, and it just makes you sad sometimes, and it makes you cry. But in reality, there's so much more to it. There's mood swings, and there's vomiting, and there's migraines. There's so many factors to this pain, and it's all because somebody decided that you weren't enough. And that's really hard. David, do you have anything to say?
Yeah, Anonymous, you said that this all started back in 5th grade. Did it continue after that? Did
Yes.
it get worse?
Yes, my freshman year I had a mental breakdown. It was over winter break. It was, I don't know. It lasted a year, probably. Year of that and a couple years of recovery. It was just the worst time.
What did the breakdown consist of? What happened in that period?
Just of being bullied in school, and just so much stress. Just I guess I got to a point where I realized I don't know what's going on anymore. I don't know what to do about it. I don't know how to stop it. I don't.
Is there, if you're comfortable, is there anything that happened to you during your breakdown, during the period of your breakdown, that you'd like to explain? Maybe some of what you felt or what you experienced?
Yeah, it was just a lot of heart racing. Couldn't eat. I was a mess. I was constantly pacing back and forth. I couldn't sleep. It was just insomnia nights. And
Thank you so much, Anonymous. Do you have any final words for our audience here today?
yeah, if you're being bullied, just know everything's gonna be okay. I know that sounds so cliche, but it'll turn you into a strong person one day.
Thank you so much, Anonymous, for coming here and sharing your story today. We will be back after a small break. This is the Papercut podcast, nestled here in the halls of OAHS. This month's theme is on bullying, and we've asked our fellow students to share their stories on being bullied, witnessing bullying, or being a bully themselves. For our final story today, we have Papercut member Allison Fensky, and a personal story of hers. Allison?
So, as a lot of people know, I was on the football team this year for Orchid Academy, and it was not as easy as you would think it was emotionally, because I would get a lot of support from my friends, and from my classmates, but I didn't get a lot of support from home. My mom thought that it was weird that I would want to do football, and my stepdad would constantly ridicule me and call me a lesbian and accuse me of being something I'm not. And it made me doubt myself and kind of, like, you get it, right? It made me doubt myself and, like, I don't know who I am. And it was hard because just because I was doing something that was generally made or meant for boys, it doesn't mean that I was, like, I wanted to be a boy or I was interested in girls. And I would get side glances when I was wearing my jersey on Fridays. That's like, I know who you are. Like, I know what you are. But they don't. I was constantly judged for what I did and what I loved to do.
So the football team, by the end, though, accepted you as one of their own?
Yes.
Okay.
They eventually accepted that I wasn't going to just quit, that I was in it I was in it. And they accepted me, and they started encouraging me.
What was that period of outcast like? Give me some examples of maybe the things that the football players did to make you feel like you weren't a part of their group.
I was very alone. I had to mostly stick with the freshmen because I was new, but no one really talked to me. No one really looked at me. No one really cared what I did. No one expected me to be able to do anything.
And that's got to be difficult, especially when you're out there putting your heart on the field and trying to show them that you are into it and that you are here to stay and that you are interested in playing with people, with your fellow student.
How did you persevere? How did you keep going when you knew that you weren't getting support from home, you weren't getting support from your fellow teammates? How did you keep going?
I think it was mostly my stubbornness, because I knew eventually they had to see she's on the football team. She can do this. She can do stuff that we can do. She's not weak. She's strong. And I wanted to go to that fall rally, and stand up with football players and be like, F your standards. Like, girls can do what guys can do. It's not all about guys for football.
Thank you for listening to the Papercut podcast. I'm Mr. Gelati, here with David and Summer. This episode was organized and produced by them, and they're here to talk a little about their experience putting the podcast together. So, first off, what was the process like of trying to get recordings and edit through them and get people to talk?
It was actually a bit difficult to get people in here. The topic is it is a touchy subject, especially with most people. So it was difficult just to get people through the door. And once they came in, even then they weren't relaxed. They were really tense. So I found that interesting that even in this sort of safe environment that we created, even for the anonymous names and the lack of titles, we still had people who were totally freaked out about sharing their stories, which I found incredibly interesting.
Mm-hmm. And the volunteers basically had to give up their entire day. They would come in nervous because they've been nervous about it all day. They would talk about it, which was really hard for some of them. You'll hear it in the podcast. And once they left, it wasn't necessarily the most rejuvenating feeling. Well, initially, it's not the most rejuvenating feeling. You don't leave feeling refreshed and like, wow, I'm glad I got that off my chest. It was very much, oh, I can't believe I am coming back to these feelings. These feelings of like hurt are coming back to me, and I have to spend the rest of my day like thinking about it, and I have to spend the rest of my day revisiting these emotions.
Yeah.
And that was really difficult for us to ask, but this is why these contributors were like beyond brave, really proud.
They tore down the walls that were holding back those memories, and they dealt with them like true champs.
Yeah, I know what I saw when students would come in. They would sort of sit in the classroom, and they were very conflicted about whether or not they wanted to actually share this experience. We had some folks actually say that they would do it and then back out, or they would come and sit for a while and then kind of change their minds. And I think part of that conflict was that, it's not just dragging up old memories, but they think about how it's, going to affect them in the present. If you talk about something that someone did for you and that person is still around, they're still in your family, you live with them, or they're still here at the school, or you encounter them in some way, and, to kind of call out your assailant or
You're a victim.
or you're, yeah, exactly. And I think that, part of the bravery of this was to be willing to take, what they really wanted to remain in the past and all of a sudden put it back into the present.
Yeah. And that's a huge thing. And then because we then have to deal with the consequences that arise out of it. So.
Yeah, even some of them I know talked about their victims, that they maybe not have necessarily bullied, but didn't treat them in the way that they ought to have been treated. That was huge. I mean, we don't know if they go to this school. We don't know if they were listening to this. I mean, that's a big deal, and that's brave.
There was this one speaker who talked about a person, and he was already really upset going through everything, but then he got to this person that he didn't bully, but he didn't befriend either, and it appeared to get so much worse for him as he started recalling everything.
Right. I know the story you're talking about. I mean, I feel like when I listened through these, every single one of them really moved me. And, and it's interesting that we had such a wide variety of topics, folks who were, who felt that they were bullied because of sexuality, or because they were trying to do something that maybe other people hadn't done before, or they were unaccepted by their families for weight or whatever reason it happened to be. And, when you hear these, I mean, they're insightful, they're heartbreaking, and you can kind of see, or I shouldn't say see, but you can feel and hear the speaker kind of going through this range of emotions, like you said, whenever they touch on these different topics, and how it's not just hurtful to them about the things that happened to them, but also looking back, I think how they responded to things, and maybe even opportunities that they had either to stand up to bullies or to befriend other people who were bullying, and it was a powerful process, I thought.
Yeah, I remember being younger and watching TV. I used to like to watch Animal Channel, and there was like a documentary on this raccoon. They had to like amputate its leg, and I was like, oh my god, this is awful. And the girl on screen said, it's nothing compared to where you're sitting. It is not real. Here, it's real. And we hear about bullying every day, and we hear, oh yeah, it tortured me, or like this person committed suicide because of the bullying, and in our heads it's kind of like, oh, that's sad, but it's sad and it happens. But listening to these people that we know, or these people that are so close to us, we pass by them every day, we might not even acknowledge them, but they see us. People go through that. People have been on that verge, and it's so much more real when it hits home like it does.
I think that's exactly right. I mean, this personalizes in a way. I mean, I was almost slightly reluctant even whenever we chose this issue. I'm like, we are aware, right? I mean, we're kind of saturated with this topic of bully awareness. I mean, it's not something that's like kind of hidden anymore. It's something that people talk about. I feel that all the students and staff at this school are very aware of its signs and its dangers and the problem of it. And yet still doing this, when you take it from just the abstract idea that, hey, we shouldn't mistreat people, to actually hearing people that we know and care about being mistreated, it really, that personalization, I think, really affected me whenever I heard it.
Yeah, actually, I am reluctant to admit it, but when people ask me about Orchid Academy, I tell them that it's the best school. There's such friendly, like, open, warm vibes here. Like, people are so accepting here. And then I was so ignorant. I was so blind to the fact that that's not at all what happens. This is like every other school. I put this school on a pedestal because I thought, oh, we have an LGBT, like, group that hangs out with each other. There's so much support and we have a anti-bullying club, and I was like, oh yeah, this school is the best, way better than any other school like Rigetti or St. Joe's. Like, we're the best. But I was so blind to the fact that that's absolutely not what's true.
No, the only difference between here and there is that this one is behind closed doors, behind the curtain. It's not in physical marks, it's in words, it's in looks, it's in attitudes, which is, while it isn't considered the classic bullying of one guy beating up another guy, it is in fact a rougher,
so much worse
form of bullying.
Yeah, I heard so many students say, no, it's not that it's not a problem here. It's just that it's this out of sight problem. Like it happens in this way where students feel ostracized. I think that we often think of bullying as something where someone is telling you that, you know, you're no good or you're ugly or that whatever it is, but there's also a way to do it where you can send a message to people in no uncertain terms that you're unwanted, and I think that's a lot of what's happening here.
And it's hard because when it's done that way, it's hard to tell that you're being bullied. There's a form of abuse that I've heard of happening between parent-child relations in a way that it's very manipulative, where the parent puts the child down verbally. They'll say, oh, you're not good at this, or you're terrible at math, and they do it maybe in a more subtle way, but then right after that, or on occasion, they would do something really nice. They would go out and go to the store and buy their daughter a new dress or their son a new skateboard, and it's really hard to tell that you're being abused in that way. So bullies probably they do use the same tactic in which they'll put you down, they'll act like your friend, they'll put you down, but then right afterward they'll like invite you back into their group. They'll threaten you with, well, you won't be able to hang out with us anymore, or like, we don't want you to hang out with us because you disagree with like this weird leader view, and that is a form of bullying.
I think that's a good point to bring up. I mean, I know even myself, my best friend whenever I was very small, I can recall definitely also being my abuser. You know, we would spend time together, we'd hang out all the time, but like, man, he really put me through it. So, like, you're absolutely right about that. Okay, folks, any final thoughts or words as we wrap up this episode?
While it was hard to listen to and it was hard to record, and I felt bad for every person in here, I'm very proud to have been there and recorded their stories and be able to present them to our school.
Actually, I did want to mention something else. During the filming process, word had gotten out that a few of our
Right.
contributors were telling their version of the story, and I actually had some of the bullies texting me, because they knew I was recording it or they knew I was in the class, texting me, asking me like, oh, is he saying this or is she saying that? Like, that's not what happened. That's not how it went down. And I'm just like, oh, geez. And it was probably 5 minutes after they'd come in that they were saying this. And I was like, wow, this is happening already. This is incredible how quickly this spreads. And it kind of occurred to me that if something like that can spread so easily and so quickly, I mean, I don't know, people move at too fast of a rate for us to like catch on. This is way too much for my brain to absorb. And this happened in the span of 2 days. Like, this was so much to absorb, to like enter this world, when 2 days previous I had no idea that bullying was even a thing here at the school. I assumed it happened in their junior high or at another school and they transferred to this school. I had no idea that this was happening.
Right. And to confirm what you're saying, as a teacher, I had students come up to me privately and ask me if such and such was doing a recording, or if so-and-so had like already done a recording, because maybe they felt the need to go in and try to counter that, or they were afraid of like what that person might have said and said, oh, you're not going to use that, are you? And so, yeah, that was what you're describing. It was definitely an issue. Okay, so once again, I want to thank all those who did have the courage to come in and do their recording. Extra special thanks here to David and Summer, who clearly did a fantastic job. Thank you both.
Hey, Mr. Gelati.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
See you next month.
Welcome to the inaugural episode of the Papercut Podcast. I'm David Gensch, and I'm Summer Rodriguez.
Oh, am I introducing myself?
That's how that. Well, he wouldn't say, "And I'm Summer Rodriguez."
And
Well, I didn't realize
hi, I'm
I
Davey
was
Genge
such a
with Summer
significant
Rodriguez.
part, Mr. Gelati.
No, but see, you say that part so that your voice gets in there.
Okay.
Do you ever
Why are
realize?
you looking at me like that?
Because I'm looking around for something that I can smash myself in the face with. I'm just like, that microphone's too expensive, so maybe my coffee cup.
Yeah, but then you spill your coffee.
And
Right,
then you
it's
get blood
just-
everywhere. Why would you want that?
No,
This
that's
is like,
not a problem.
What if he gets it in his coffee and then he decides to drink it? Like,
It's his blood.
You know how she gets rid of boyfriends? She just spends time with them. That's just what she does.
Ouch.
That's how her relationships end.
Oh. That's great. I mean, it's terrible, but it's great.
that was pretty funny. Yeah.
You should raise.
This is
Did you ever realize